The cabin door opened, and Lu Sheng followed Snowy in a military armored vehicle, entering a massive building. Tomorrow would be the official start of the military star selection process. Snowy led Lu Sheng to a room. Snowy suggested that Lu Sheng rest for the night, and after giving a few instructions, she left. Lu Sheng took a moment to assess the room inside. It wasn't large and didn't even have windows. The only piece of furniture was a bed. Habitually, Lu Sheng swept the room with his psychic power before lying down on the bed. He fell asleep, immediately entering his dream realm. Once again, Lu Sheng found himself in that familiar dream realm, the same military base he remembered. Carefully, he turned a corner, and immediately a familiar figure appeared before him. Lu Sheng hesitated, wondering if he should attempt it once more. With a serene look in his eyes, he took a deep breath. Tenfold stellar force, control-level fist technique, activating his level 3 psychic power. Lastly, he used the Grandmaster technique, 10 suns in the sky. Now radiating like a golden sun, Lu Sheng surrounded by flames, and he rapidly dashed toward the female Grandmaster. The moment Lu Sheng's aura erupted, the female Grandmaster sensed his presence. Her gaze turned towards Lu Sheng, yet her emotion was unchanged. With a gentle sweep of her broken long spear, she vanished from sight. The brilliant golden sun and the dazzling icy river violently clashed. After about 10 minutes, Lu Sheng jolted awake on the bed, as if roused from a nightmare. Sweat drenched his forehead, and his face was pale. However, traces of excitement shimmered across Lu Sheng's face. When he was going full out, he could actually go heads-on with the female Grandmaster, unlike last time when he was instantly defeated. More importantly, this battle had further honed his martial skills. He also overcame his fear of dying in the dream realm. By the next morning, Snowy and Qin came to visit Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng mentioned that the room felt a bit stuffy. Snowy explained that the base set up by the Eastern Military District was located just a few hundred kilometers from the front lines of the battlefield against the beasts. Many of these beasts emitted toxic gases, so the base's gas protection measures were very stringent. Snowy was in the middle of her sentence when she suddenly stopped, fixing her gaze on Lu Sheng. Snowy felt that there was something different about Lu Sheng compared to yesterday. Qin felt the same way. If he were to describe it, Lu Sheng yesterday was like a jade stone covered in mud. Today, it seemed as if that layer of mud had been completely washed away. Clearly, Lu Sheng had made another breakthrough in his martial arts. Lu Sheng responded seriously. Maybe he just became more handsome. Growth spurts happen quickly at this age. Qin looked at Lu Sheng with an appreciative gaze. The three continued walking down a corridor. When Qin asked Lu Sheng about his chances of winning, Lu Sheng merely chuckled and modestly said he would do his best. At that moment, a voice echoed around them. Two figures were approaching. Leading them was a male military officer. Behind him trailed a young man with a smirking expression. The young man was about the same age as Lu Sheng. The officer greeted them with a smile. Snowy coldly glanced at him, simply uttering the officer's name and stating that he was as annoying as ever. Lu Sheng couldn't help but glance at Snowy. It seemed like the two didn't get along. This was the first time he'd seen Snowy express such undisguised disdain towards someone. The officer, whose name is Richard, seemingly unfazed by Snowy's comment and continues laughing. His gaze briefly lingered on Qin and Lu Sheng. He taunted, "Qin's a waste. Seems like he brought along another waste." Lu Sheng was speechless. This guy, Richard, really was asking for trouble. Qin wasn't angered. He simply pinched his nose and told Richard that if he hadn't brushed his teeth this morning, it'd be better if he kept his mouth shut. Qin, with a mocking expression, flipped through some files, remarking that the prodigy representatives of Richard's province didn't seem impressive. There were no special annotations. These annotations refer to individuals with outstanding abilities, those worth special attention. Richard proposed a bet to see whose prodigy representative would rank higher in the selection. The wager? A 5th-level beast marrow. Snowy scoffed, telling Richard that there are 3 of them. She then ignored him, continuing towards the Richard abruptly stopped them. Snowy flashed a triumphant grin, and Richard quickly added, increasing the wager to 3. His consistent disdain and mockery angered Snowy, who clenched her teeth and accepted the bet. Richard patted the young man beside him, telling him that the 3 fifth-level beast marrow would elevate his martial arts even further. The young man's face lit up with a mocking smile, rings of flames encircling him. He sarcastically thanked Snowy. Chin and Snowy hadn't expected this young man to have elemental control abilities, and they certainly didn't expect them to cheat by not documenting it. With a surprised Pikachu face, they angrily condemned Richard's shamelessness. Richard, on the other hand, brimming with smugness, laughed heartily and walked away alongside the young man. Once the duo was out of sight, the previously frustrated Snowy and the infuriated Chin simultaneously regained their composure. Gazing at the departing figures, they both uttered the same word in unison. Idiots. Grinning, Chin asked Lu Sheng about his acting just now. Lu Sheng laughed, commenting that Chin's expressions were too exaggerated and his movements too rigid. Snowy chuckled. Only a fool like that officer would think he could hide an elemental control talent. But does he know how that compares to a level 3 psychic master? Lu Sheng looked at the two of them as if he was seeing them for the first time, and couldn't help but feel deep sympathy for Richard, who was still basking in his perceived triumph. Snowy explained that their families were at odds, and Richard was notorious for his foul mouth. She then turned to Lu Sheng, placing her hopes on him for this military star selection. Soon, they arrived at an elevator. Snowy and Chin could only accompany him this far. Someone below would explain the selection rules to him. As the elevator doors were about to close, Snowy suddenly stepped forward, looking intently into Lu Sheng's eyes, and asked seriously, "How confident is Lu Sheng about this selection?" Lu Sheng shook his head, saying only a bit, but not a lot. Seeing his response, both Snowy and Chin showed a hint of disappointment in their eyes, but still they asked, "How much is not a lot?" In the next moment, as the elevator doors were slowly closing, they saw Lu Sheng, with a calm expression, reply, 99.9%. The only way he'd lose is if he suddenly got disqualified from the selection now. In the conference room, officers were busy with preparations when a middle-aged man with a general's star on his shoulder walked in. Everyone halted their activities, standing erect to salute him. This was a level 7 Grandmaster, Major General Yu. When he inquired if all representatives had arrived, Snowy, holding a tablet, reported, "All candidates have entered their respective tracks. The candidate who defeats all the arranged beasts and reaches the finish line first will be the winner. Each track has 3 level 2 beasts, 1 level 3 beast, and 1 level 4 beast. In the final challenge, they will face a peak level 4 beast." Upon hearing this, the other officers in the conference room couldn't believe their ears. A peak level 4 beast, the strongest in its class, the golden-eyed demon, and they would need at least 2 of their rank to face it. It seemed an excessive challenge for a group of 18-year-old students. Snowy explained, "This is the final team test. The star selection is aimed at choosing leaders within the army. To overcome a formidable enemy, they must learn to harness all of their strength. That's the key to victory." Major General Yu then spoke up. Their military district guards the country's second most dangerous front line, yet for consecutive years, they have ranked at the bottom in the national military district competition. If the best talents of the eastern region can't even face a peak level 4 beast, then their military district, their nation, has no future. Upon hearing this, the officers fell silent, and the selection officially began. The first was a student from Haiking Province. He sprinted through the long corridor when suddenly a massive pig-like beast violently rammed him into the wall. He tried to protect himself with his hands, but then, from behind, a 3-eyed cat beast emerged. He was eliminated. Many watched the screen with growing disappointment, seeing that many had already been eliminated. The general sighed and instructed the guards and instructors to pay attention to the safety of these students and to ensure they weren't injured. At that moment, he wanted to check on the students who were highlighted as key contenders. The first was 17-year-old Amy, an elemental talent martial artist who could control electricity. She was currently at a first-level control rank. The second was an 18-year-old boy named David, a psychic talent martial artist. He had passed the second-level psychic master assessment. The third screen showed a very striking young man. Standing over 2 meters tall with a body full of muscles was 18-year-old Rocky. He was a fourth-level martial artist with a defensive talent. He could make his skin as hard as iron. Even third-level beasts couldn't breach his defense. The general had high hopes for Rocky. Many of the officers considered him to be the most likely candidate for the title of this year's rising military star. Suddenly, a young man appeared on the screen. It was no other than Lee, the prodigy representing Richard's province, possessing the elemental control talent of fire, which wasn't mentioned in the data. Richard stood up, explaining that Lee's abilities had awakened not long ago, and there wasn't time to update the data. The general nodded slightly. However, other officers sneered at such an excuse. Not having time to update? Isn't it just intentional concealment, hoping to make a grand appearance during the selection? They all knew such tricks but couldn't be bothered to call them out. Richard, however, seemed quite pleased, enjoying the attention. As he sat down, he specifically glanced in the direction of Snowy, mouthing the words, 3 portions of beast's marrow. At this moment, the screen fluctuated for the second time. A candidate was dashing through the course rapidly, even faster than all of the prodigies mentioned earlier. Upon seeing this, General Yu turned his head in disbelief at this student's rapid advancement. To his astonishment, General Yu discovered that there wasn't a single red dot indicating an active beast on this particular track. He immediately asked Snowy to pull up the live surveillance. All of the officers in the room shifted their focus onto the monitor. Only 3 minutes into the start of the race, Lu Sheng had already defeated all the beasts on his track. General Yu demanded to know who this contestant was, and only then did Snowy realize that it was Lu Sheng's track. Switching the surveillance to 3 minutes earlier, they watched as Lu Sheng entered his designated track and immediately encountered the first beast. Recollecting that he had once consumed the meat of this exact beast, Lu Sheng dispatched it with a casual punch. 2 stone gates in front of him opened, revealing 2 more beasts. Lu Sheng hurled the horn of the defeated beast at one, and with a gentle kick, took down the other. He did not hasten his pace, but instead seemed to be gauging his martial prowess and assessing his own condition. He moved with his eyes closed, tuning into his surroundings. Suddenly, a third-level beast appeared from behind him. Without even looking, Lu Sheng nonchalantly flicked a small pebble with his foot. The pebble shot out like a bullet, striking the beast's belly and propelling it away. In the conference room, all eyes were on Lu Sheng as he maneuvered through the course, having almost reached the final track. Many officers were puzzled. To them, Lu Sheng appeared ordinary, yet he could effortlessly defeat the beasts with simple as one punch. General Yu asked Snowy to introduce this student. Snowy recited, he was a prodigy representative from Dongning Province, Lu Sheng, a level 3 martial artist with a strength-type talent. Upon hearing this, Richard realized Snowy and Chin had also concealed some info. The officers began discussing. The records showed nothing extraordinary about him. They hadn't noticed any special abilities either. General Yu then enlightened them. Lu Sheng has mastered more than 4 types of martial arts in the perfect state. Both his movement techniques and fist techniques have reached a meticulous state, which makes his combat prowess exceptionally outstanding in real battle scenarios. The expressions of the officers subtly shifted, showing hints of astonishment. Mastering 4 or 5 martial arts, all reaching the perfect states, and even including 2 that are in the meticulous states. How could an 18-year-old possibly achieve this? General Yu was delighted. It's been a long time since he has seen such a pure martial arts prodigy. People like Lu Sheng were more common during the first 100 years when martial arts just began to flourish. But now, he shook his head. Before General Yu could continue, the screen showed Lu Sheng reaching the 6th stage. The beast at this stage had the ability to become invisible and create duplicates. 3 of them surrounded Lu Sheng. As they all leaped at him simultaneously, Lu Sheng, using the recently comprehended the perfect martial path, sensed the real beast hidden in the shadows. With a light ground the creature down. The cat-like beast let out a surprised meow before Lu Sheng lifted and then violently slammed it to the ground. General Yu, taken aback, stood up from his chair in surprise. The level 4 beast was defeated in an instant. General Yu burst into laughter, admitting he was wrong. Lu Sheng's fist technique has reached the state of mastery. Richard glared at Qin with gritted teeth. In response, Qin gestured at them with an internationally recognized gesture, staying silent. Lu Sheng slowly approached the final gate, standing in front of a massive door. He could sense an immensely powerful beast behind it. As the doors opened, a gigantic cage was revealed, imprisoning a colossal ape standing over 10 meters tall. Its massive silhouette blocked the overhead lights, casting shadows. All that was visible were a pair of dark gold eyes radiating a brutal aura and the terrifying sound of its breathing, reminiscent of the rumbling of volcanic magma. Having finished his warm-up, Lu Sheng was now ready to go all out. Sensing Lu Sheng's intent to battle, the golden-eyed demon ape raised its arm and let out an enraged roar, causing the surrounding corridors to resonate with a humming sound. Inside the conference room, all the officers held their breath. They were not expecting Lu Sheng to challenge the golden-eyed demon ape just by himself. But they knew that the absolute climax of this military star selection was about to unfold.